evening, folks. I'm sure you're all wondering why I haven't concluded episode 1 yet. I've just been having too much fun making these videos. Love Twisted, ICP, Psychopathic, Circle Jerks, Dead Kennedys. Maybe some old school punk that I'm going to use here real soon, too. But the conclusion of episode 1, it's coming real soon. In fact, I was going to give everyone out there a little bit more information, the proof, quote-unquote, I have for the court case coming up between Mr. Monahan, myself, and my girl Carrie. But I decided to piecemeal it out and not use it all until after the case. And the June 14th date has changed because Mr. Monahan has moved to take it out of small claims into a higher court, which is great because for whoever wins, it's a larger sum of money. I was just suing for $3,000, even though what he stole from my family was worth a hell of a lot more than $3,000. It's now moved to a higher court, so wonderful. If we have to get attorneys involved, then we're also talking about extra fees attached to the suit for the attorneys and court costs. So let me see, what do we have here? We still have to wrap up the burial ground and massacre site, and also our slumlord profile, Ed Uswick. But a few words. First, in terms of our special feature, Slander is spoken, Liable is written, video proves everything. I just wanted to make a few extra comments before I moved on with the special feature. But these comments are specifically about the special feature. It's really amazing to me. You know, I thought Mr. Monahan was a friend. We did a lot of work together, boarded up houses, you know. In fact, my family helped put him on the board of the Carriagetown Historic Neighborhood Association. And, you know, the man is a usurper. He likes to take everyone else's efforts and call them his own. If he thinks this alley idea is going to happen, he's just out of his mind, because first of all, the city doesn't have the money to spend on putting an alley in between University Avenue and 4th Avenue, and it would just be such a serious quality of life issue for me and my family, since we're the only ones living on the block, and there's no way in hell any artist group is going to take over Spencer's, and even if they did, who in their right mind would want to put an alley between University and 4th Avenue? Because then you're just opening up your little project, my house, or anybody else that might end up living on Stone Street between University and 4th Avenue to a whole lot of potential violence from the liquor store. I mean, just in the last week, we've had 2 gun incidents related to people committing robberies at gunpoint. This morning, as a matter of fact, June 1st, 9:30 in the morning, I caught a guy trying to steal beer from the beer truck, the Budweiser truck, at the liquor store. And when he couldn't do that, he snatched up 3 or 4 bags of bottles that the Coke guy was taking from the liquor store. You know, when you return bottles for 10 cents and then the Coke guy comes and picks up the bottles and reimburses the store. Well, the guy ripped off 3 bags, and I caught him right out in front of the house. Didn't catch him because it was a little too quick for me, but we did get the bottles and returned them to the store. And apparently this guy is a member of the so-called Wall Street gang, the Wall Street gang. Actually, it's Walcott Street, and they're using the WOL from Walcott for the name of their gang. It's not Wall Street, like, you know, the Wall Street Journal or Wall Street where the stock market is or anything like that. But at any rate, I also wanted to point out a few things that I find very interesting. The hypocrisy, the selective nature, the horrible character of certain people in this neighborhood, particularly Mr. Monahan. There are others, which we'll get into in episode 2, but for now, I wanted to illustrate how this is a personal vendetta and has really nothing to do with anything valid politically or socially in the neighborhood. As far as I understood it, Mr. Monahan and I were pretty good friends. You know, we burned, you know what I'm talking about, drank Monsters together, cut down trees, removed brush, boarded up houses, you know, did a lot of things together. He used my efforts to his advantage, and apparently told people that when they asked, why are you friends with that guy, basically he would tell them because he's the only guy that will confront anybody, and he's the only guy that'll, go out and do any of the extra work like boarding up houses and things like that. So real slick, real nice there, guy. I think it's really interesting too that he would attempt to damage, or let me make it clear, attempt to damage my ability to have a good quality of life for my family, for my kids, and to affect the quality of life by even suggesting that you would put something like an alley through the block at University and 4th Avenue between Stone Street and Grand Traverse. Why don't you focus on the slumlords in the area? Ed Uswick is going to be, this first episode's slumlord profile. And for a year, when my family lived at 621 Stone Street across the street, Mr. Monahan knew that the guy was renting out that property and attempting to rent out other properties in Carriagetown. There's another one here on Stone. There's one on 4th Avenue that belongs to Ed Uswick. And there's one right behind Mike Freeman on Lion Street, just south of University, that belongs to Ed Uswick. And in each case, he's rented to like the worst of the worst. In fact, on the 4th Avenue house, I called CPS, and it was a valid reason because there was nothing but drugs and alcohol and a buttload of kids in a house that didn't have a water heater, adequate heat, or any basic facilities. And in each case, Mr. Uswick's been renting out these houses without a valid renter's license. And at 621 Stone Street, he was told by Building and Safety Inspection to bring the house up to code by May 23rd of last year, and he didn't do that. But Mr. Monahan will spend all of his time and all of his efforts trying to attack me, when you would think, as the president of the neighborhood association, he should be more concerned with things like Mr. Uswick renting out his properties without a license, renting them without proper code variances taken care of. And it's really interesting that he would spend his time on an individual that is a homeowner with a family instead of focusing on someone like Mr. Uswick. On top of that, he's friends with the members of the Historic District Commission, and the Historic District Commission has a responsibility to pay attention to who is owning property and renting out property in Carriagetown. And in any situation where you would find a piece of property in Carriagetown that's in violation of one section of the Historic District Ordinance that I have brought to the attention of the Historic District Commission on several occasions, it's called demolition by neglect. And the commission itself didn't even act on that section of the ordinance until I brought it to their attention on the issue of the Hurley properties here in Carriagetown, in my 4-block area between University Avenue, 5th Avenue, the Gold Street, which Tim Monahan lives on, and Grand Traverse. Ed Uswick is clearly in violation of demolition by neglect. Not only has he been attempting to rent these properties out without a rental license up until maybe a couple of months ago, but those properties just sit there, and he's got them listed on Craigslist for sale. In the meantime, they're rotting. They're falling apart. They've been scabbed, and scrappers have been in them. The water supplies have been destroyed, and I think all of them except 621. And if you take a look at the northwest side of 621 on the roof, there's a massive hole, and that's leaking into the house. This is like one of the most historically significant houses in Carriagetown, and the Historic District Commission does nothing about it. And our illustrious president of the Neighborhood Association has probably never once made a complaint to Building and Safety about the neglect that's taking place at 621, let alone the fact that there's no renter's license there. And again, the most recent tenants have just moved out, and Mr. Uswick turned the water off on them illegally, and there was like 5 kids living in that house, and that water bill was enormous, and it wasn't mine. I did the same thing that the most recent tenants did. I paid what I used. I didn't pay the $1,600 bill from the previous tenant that Uswick tried to make me pay. But in my case, I took him to court through legal services, and if he were to have turned the water off on us then, last year, he would have found himself in a world of shit. But the previous tenants didn't have the wherewithal, no offense, I like Josh and Betsy, but they didn't have the wherewithal to take it to the next step with legal services. So, you know, when you really get down to it, this is a personal vendetta. Mostly because he's afraid, and he knows, Mr. Monahan, he knows that I'm right. He knows, and now everybody does, that he's a backstabber, and he really doesn't have any concern for the neighborhood itself. His biggest concern is his own pocket, like Nancy Sinclair, Mike Freeman, Dave White, and the whole gambit of people that have been in this neighborhood for quite some time and have done everything they could to steer monies and projects in their direction only. You know, we have the Husaki family here on Stone Street also that's owned that home for 30-some years, maybe more, and no one has ever attempted to try to help them get a roof. You know, now they may not be the greatest people, the coolest people, the smartest people, or whatever category you want to throw them under, but they definitely deserve a roof, and they definitely deserve some assistance. But because they're not with the in crowd, they don't get any assistance at all. And quite frankly, they should be walked through the process. They deserve help. They're a low-income family that have been here for years. So, you know, you should really look at the motivations behind the people involved in the Carriagetown Historic Neighborhood Association and also at the Historic District Commission. NIP's on its way out. Apparently they don't get any more money, and there's been quite a bit of corruption there. And, you know, it should be no shock to anybody, especially considering that the city of Flint itself is under investigation once again for corruption and misappropriation of federal money. So episode 1 will be concluded soon. At least the special feature, and then we'll move on to the other featured topics: the burial ground, massacre site, burial ground / massacre site. What is it? And the slow mode profile of Ed Uswick. Hope you enjoyed the videos so far, and the video following this one will be an update on my toilet commercial. It's called Toilet Situation. I won't explain it. Hope you enjoy. Check it out. Stay tuned to Skeleton Heights with Adam Garrett on Facebook at Campaign Headquarters. Rock on with your bad selves.